Welcome to the KW Next Gen podcast. I'm your host, Kaitlyn Pennington, and part of the Next Gen team. We will hear stories from young adults who are living big lives and attaining really big goals. KW Next Gen is a 501c3 nonprofit that was founded by Gary Keller of Keller Williams. Our mission is to empower and equip the next generation of leaders and entrepreneurs with the tools needed to remove limiting beliefs, take action, and live a big life. KW Next Gen is founded on the models and systems of Quantum Leap, the material that Gary Keller has been teaching for years. It helps people understand how to build big businesses, to live really fulfilling lives, to understand financial literacy, and remove all of those blockages. So join us as we talk with our young adults who are implementing these practices and really accomplishing their big dreams at a young age. We'll also have a chance to talk with our instructors, our board members, and our coaches who are pouring into the next generation and making a really big impact on their community and our world at large. So let's jump right in. Welcome to the KW Next Gen podcast. How are you all doing today?
Great.
Good.
Doing good.
Well, let's jump right in because we have three amazing guests today that I am so excited to have. We have three of our board members today that have all participated in the KW Next Gen programs and been supporters and been involved in a multitude of different ways. So we are going to dive right in. Let's start with you, Jesse. Can you go ahead and introduce yourself? Where are you from?
My name is Jesse Coleman. A lot of people call me Coach Coleman. I am from Chicago, Illinois.
Wonderful. And Cammie.
Hi, y'all. I'm Cammie Minks. I'm based in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Wonderful. And Jordan.
I'm Jordan Larsen. I'm originally from Salt Lake City, Utah, and currently living in the Seattle Bellevue area.
I love that. And I'm in Austin. So we are representing lots of the United States today, all sprinkled through. And I am so excited to hear more of your stories. First and foremost, though, these three people donate their time, their energy, their knowledge, their dollars to the organization. They practice what they preach. Each one of them, as you'll hear through their stories, are really living out the Quantum Leap principles, and they're really living out their missions. And I have had the absolute pleasure of getting to know the three of them over the last 3 years of being part of the KW Next Gen team. And I genuinely can say that these three humans are such gems, and they're involved within KW, they're involved in their communities, are contributing to their families, to their loved ones. And so they're just great examples of living Quantum Leap and living your mission. So Cammie, in your own words, what is KW Next Gen and how are you involved?
Well, first of all, thank you for the intro. Very, very sweet. I don't think you get enough credit yourself, Kaitlyn. So thank you for all that you do. What is KW Next Gen to me is a platform for young professionals to get to where they want to go at an accelerated rate through amazing curriculum, community, coaching, scholarships, and so much more. And it's had a huge impact on my life and trajectory. And I know we're going to dive into that a little bit more, but I truly wouldn't be where I am today without KW Next Gen.
I love to hear it, and we are so lucky to have you. Jesse, what about you? What is KW Next Gen to you, and how are you involved?
Yeah, so KW Next Gen to me is that platform that bridges the gap between the regular education that we get in school, but also the real life education that we need to be able to move forward in the world. So I look at it as that thing that we don't get that we should get. And for me, I'm involved by being also a instructor, but also sit on the board. And like Cammie just said, it's one of those things that's changed my life so much because it made me look at things totally different and rewire a lot of the things that I was taught at a younger age.
Yeah, that's a great point. And that's also my elevator pitch sometimes when people are like, so what kind of classes do you all provide? I'm like, it's the stuff that you're supposed to learn in high school that would actually be helpful in the real world, but you don't. Luckily, some school systems are starting to catch up to our curriculum with, investing and financial literacy and the mindset part and everything. But I definitely, I learned calculus and I have not used it since 11th grade. So, but I had to teach myself budgeting. So, it's just so interesting. That is a very good point, Jesse. And Jordan, what about you?
Yeah, I would echo what both of them said. I think that the KW Next Gen is first and foremost, yes, a nonprofit organization that is charged with bringing the Quantum Leap curriculum to the world. Um, More than that, though, I am a firm believer that it is an organization of people who have come together and decided that there's so much wild, incredible potential locked up within so many young adults that this organization and this group of people comes together to create a community to go unlock and unleash that.
I love that mental picture that you just gave me of unlocking, of like a lot of times young people do. They have so much ambition, they have great ideas. They for whatever reason they keep it locked inside. Maybe they don't have the resources, maybe they're nervous, maybe they think they're too young, whatever the case may be, but being able to hand them that key to their own life and say, "Hey, whether it's some funding you need, maybe it's some coaching and guidance you need, maybe it's just the encouragement that you can." I feel like all three of you are instructors, coaches, and donors and leaders and all of the different things. And you are all the ones that are handing those keys over to the young adults. And it's so, so great. So, I want you all to rewind though, back when you first came into the Quantum Leap and the KW Next Gen. I know it was KW Kids Can, probably when you all came across it. But when you first came across the Quantum Leap material, Cammie, what was your first experience with that and your first impression?
So my experience was my team leader at my market center took me, our transaction coordinator, and another agent in our office who were all within the age limit. And she bought us our plane tickets, our hotel tickets, and our Quantum Leap tickets to fly down to Austin to take QL with Gary. That was like my very first experience, and even hearing Quantum Leap. And I just trusted her. She still is such a great leader. She's still in our organization. And she was like, "Here you go, fly down to Austin." I've never been to Austin before. I'm traveling with two people that I haven't traveled with before. And I got to Austin, got to the classroom, and my whole world changed. And I know that sounds kind of cliche, but it really took me from a mindset of I had just graduated college, trying to figure out what I want to do. I had already purchased my first home. But the biggest thing that I took from taking QL that first time was immediately when I got back, I turned my home into an investment property and started my journey of investing in real estate. So that's where I started. That was back in 2018, and it feels like a lifetime ago, but really it wasn't. Really wasn't that long ago, and it's fun to see where I've come since then.
Wow, that is so neat. And who was it that decided to bring you?
Her name's Bethany Nelson. She's still a really good friend of mine. And yeah, shout out to Bethany.
Yeah, I just want to give those leaders a shout out because we have those leaders across KW who identify either young leaders within KW or young leaders in their community. And that is such a great example of like pouring into them, being like, "I will cover your expenses to go to this event," because she knew that like the ROI on that investment would be really great, right? You turned into a leader, you have stayed with KW, you have grown with it. We'll get more into that. But I think that's important for a lot of leaders within KW to hear that, or, in your community in general, when you pour into a young adult and you give them the opportunity to attend a Quantum Leap class, whether it's coming to QL Summit and hearing it from Gary and paying for the plane ticket and everything like Cammie's experience, or just making sure that they're in the room at a local event, that allows you to be able to show a young person what the opportunities are. And then you never know where it's going to grow. Like Cammie is still, you said 2018. So, so many years later, you're still here and you've grown so much from it. So I'm sure, she's really gotten her return on that investment for sure. Oh, what about you, Jesse? What was your first experience with QL?
So for me, pretty much like you just said, mine was on a local level where my first market center that I was a part of, there was an instructor there, and he actually did QL in our market center. And I will age myself. I was over the qualifying age limit for that, yet it was one of those situations where it's like, wow, I I was looking at things completely wrong for all of these years, and that having a new perspective on not only my business but life, it really affected how I started wanting to live my life and teachings of QL. Like, hey, this is how I want to build my future around these concepts, around these ideas. So I am forever grateful for being able to, be in that class locally and then having the opportunity to do the virtual QL summit during the time of the pandemic and being able to speak through that really just took it to a step further of seeing the impact that we have on a lot of the young adults.
I love that you use that as an example because I think that is a great thing for people to be reminded that, like, if you're over 30, attending a quantum leap class can still be so, so valuable for a multitude of reasons. And one of the reasons why KW Next Gen was started initially was Gary was teaching quantum leap to all ages, many people far over 30, and they were saying, I wish I learned this sooner. At the same time, he started teaching it to his son and his friends and stuff, and they were getting a lot of value from it. And that's why he decided to actually create a nonprofit where young people learn this information. But if you are listening right now and you're over 30 or you're an instructor that wants to teach to people, use Jesse as a great example of someone who like heard it over the age of 30. I'm sure you were like 30 in a day. Age is but a number. We all know that. And yet then that really dominoed into you becoming all that you are now, so it was so valuable and probably really ignited in you too that, oh, I'm learning this now, but what if I did learn this 10 years ago, or when I was 18, like how valuable that could be. So I love that story, and it's great to be reminded too that these can go on in market centers, they can go on in communities, they can go in schools, places of worship. We have people that teach it to baseball teams and football teams, whatever the case may be, just reach your audience wherever they're at. And then Jordan, what was your first experience?
Yeah, mine was very similar to Cammie's. So I was a young 22-year-old. I decided to make the jump into real estate and joined a local Keller Williams Market Center. I'd been there for about 2 years at this point, and was in a conversation with my market center team leader at the time, Johnny Christensen. And he happened to pull up the email, got the invite to QL Summit with Gary Keller. None of us knew anything about what it was, but I wasn't stupid. A day in the room with a billionaire, like, sign me up. I don't know what I'm getting into, but yes, I want to be there. Um, Being 22 and in college, I had $0 to buy a flight from Utah to Austin and a hotel room and all the things. And expressed that to Johnny, and he just took one look at me and kind of sat there for a second and thought. And I was like, "Look, I'd love to be in that room, but like, it's not in the cards." Um, and then he sat there for probably 30 seconds and just kind of looked at me and was thinking, and then pulls out his credit card and says, "Go book it." And I remember looking at him, I'm like, "Well, I don't know how I'm going to pay you back." And he's like, "I didn't ask for the money. I said, go book it." So that was my first opportunity. I think it actually was the same year Cammie went for the first time. I'm pretty sure it was 2018. And that is a moment I'll never forget. It's a moment that I think has shaped the way I try to show up as a leader and an individual, because of that. It's investing in the people that you see potential and future opportunity for.
Yeah, and hearing both of those stories, I know personally, and I know both of you are very humble people, but I will toot your horns. Both Cammie and Jordan have sponsored young adults to come to QL Summit now. They have done what someone did for them. I know both of you have contributed in lots of ways in donating to make sure that these young adults can continue to go through coaching, to have scholarships. So someone giving you this opportunity, you have now taken that and given it to many, many other people. So again, that ripple effect is really immeasurable. Like, it's so big that you never know how wide it goes. And I'm sure that many of the young adults that you all have influenced will go on to do it again and again and again. So very, very cool. And I know you all lead with that generous heart, all three of you, to the nth degree. So thank you all for sharing that part of your story and just letting people like rewind back to where you came from. One key part of Quantum Leap is, of course, creating your mission statement, and each and every one of us really live our mission statement to the best of our ability. I'm going to start with you, Jordan, because this year at QL Summit, Jordan led the mission statement exercise, and I believe Jordan does still fall in the Gen Z category. Am I correct with that?
I fall right on the border. I technically am a millennial by about 60 days.
Okay, okay. But with that said, he has the finger on the pulse of all things AI, all things Gen Z, all things technology. And you led this year's mission statement exercise with using an AI prompt and helped people expand it, which was really, really cool. It was taking a technique and a principle that has been around for quite a few years and merged it with today's technology. And I love that. So can you share your mission statement and tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, the mission for my life is to unlock human potential through being a locksmith, both through being a leader, asking big questions, and through my teaching and coaching. For me, that's kind of what came out of Quantum Leap from the very beginning. For me, is I've always found myself driven to helping people go live their biggest and best life. I think that Gary was that locksmith for me and has been over time to show me what's possible for my own life. And that is the one thing that lights my soul on fire more than anything else, is being able to see the potential in somebody, ask that one question or make that one comment that the light flicks on and all of a sudden the world changes.
Speechless. That was amazing. I'm like, I love that about you. Yeah, I'm like, yes. Yeah, and just you really do that too, even in casual conversation. You ask really good questions and you are very present with people and make people feel like you really care about them living a really great life. And so I've had a chance to just be, around you on more of a friend level and see that in you. So yeah, you're living your mission for sure. I can
Well, thank
attest to
you.
that. Yeah.
It's funny. My friends will often tell you that don't bring Jordan a problem unless you're ready to do something about it.
Okay, I will know communication styles. If I'm ever just needing to vent, I'll have to preface this is just venting. We're not
Just tell
problem.
me, I need to vent. I need to just be mad. Okay, great. We can be mad.
But if I need to problem solve, we will get to the answer. I love that.
Yes.
What about you, Jesse? What is your mission statement?
Yeah. So for me, the mission for my life is to give back to the youth by showing them that they have better options and that the world is theirs. The reason I picked that is a lot of people know my story. Where I'm from, a lot of things I've done and been through, we didn't feel like we had other options to be able to succeed in the world. So if I can show them like, hey, I look like you, I've done the things you've done, I don't dress like the average business person, just to give them say, hey, you can still be successful and you can choose a better route and direction than, the route that we thought was um the only route we could take. And that's why that's important to me because again, I just want to show them that there's other options out there to take.
I love that, Jesse. And I think it is really important for young people and really people of all ages to see others succeed and living their life with purpose, but also not abandoning who they are. I love that you said like I look like them or I dress a certain way. Like you really define the fact that like you're living your life in your way on your terms, and that does not constrict the amount of success that you can have, the amount of influence you can have. And quite frankly, I think that that's the type of world that I'm always advocating for, is that leaders and business people don't look a certain way or dress a certain way or act a certain way or talk a certain way or whatever. I want leaders and people that are high up in business that look, feel, act, in every different way because people are being authentic to them. And it's like, it's only when we start seeing the cookie cutter of everyone being the same that leadership really crumbles and we lose sight of what real people are needing. And so just thank you for living out your mission and
Yeah.
being an example for that.
Yeah, and even I've had people that was older that approached me like, "Thanks for showing up as you because I thought was going to be stuck a certain way, but seeing that I can, change my life and do different things. So it's just leading by example, lead it from the front.
Oh, I love that. And I do think that the younger generations are getting better at that, at being who they are and unapologetically. And it is teaching the older generations that it's like, you either get on the ship or not, because we're coming, kind of thing. And so being someone that is leading the charge of that is really great. And I love to see it. What about you, Cami? What is your mission statement?
Yeah, the mission for my life is to listen, ask questions, to create limitless opportunities for myself and other young professionals. And another part of my QL journey was when I went and took QL with Gary in 2018, I got introduced to KW young professionals for the very first time in that classroom. And I was just inspired. I was inspired not only by what KW Next Gen can do for the next generation, but I wanted to be a part of doing that on a bigger scale at KW. So I flew back home and also helped launch the first KWYP chapter in Minneapolis. And really, my journey with KWYP just flourished from there. And today I'm the community manager for KW Young Professionals at Keller Williams Realty. And I really do get to live out my mission of creating limitless opportunities for young professionals at our company every single day.
Yes, and I am so glad you touched on that. And I know Jesse is a really big part of KWYP as well. And I love that the two communities work together and have a lot of overlap with our audience and the people that we serve. Um, I'm going to just ask you though, Cami, can you explain to people that are listening maybe the difference of KW Next Gen and KWYP and or the similarities?
Yes. So KW Next Gen, I would say one is for the KW associate, the KW admin, the KW leader, any sort of avatar at KW. But what makes KW Next Gen different from KW Young Professionals is KW Next Gen can service the world outside of KW. So they can, and I know we talked about this, could be churches, it could be schools, it could be local community organizations. Next Gen can service and support all those people through their journey of becoming the best version of themselves or helping them get to where they want to go. And KWYP focuses on the KW associate, the Keller Williams admin, the Keller Williams market center leadership individual. So that's what makes us different. And there is, like you said, a ton of overlap of there's KWYP members involved in KW Next Gen. There's KW Next Gen individuals who jump into real estate and then join KWYP. So we really do work together in a lot of ways to make sure that both of our audiences have the opportunity to be a part of both of our organizations. And it is really fun to see the overlap. I know I met Jesse through Next Gen and we got together in KWYP, and he's been such a huge advocate in our community. So it's just, I just can't thank KW Next Gen enough for the opportunities that KWYP gets to share what we do and vice versa.
Yeah, that was so perfectly said. And I do love the overlap. And yet, a lot of people within KW get a little confused on like what's what. And so that was a great example of explaining it to people. And also, I think what's really great is like because KW Next Gen does have, Quantum Leap. KWYP also has lots of classes and everything. So you can get a lot of education through either organization, which is great. And then KWYP members can get 3 months of free MAPS coaching and 3 months of professional coaching. That's something that like as a new agent or a young agent, that can be expensive, and quite a commitment. And so what's so great is we're able to provide that. And so that then the KWYP members that are young agents out there with all this ambition, they have the leadership and the guidance from the coaching that they can do. And then also they can also use the scholarships to things like you can apply the scholarship to go to the KWYP Summit if you wanted to. You could use the scholarship to go to Family Reunion or Mega Camp, where there's amazing KWYP events, great networking. And as someone who used to be in production and do real estate, like, it can be very overwhelming. So to have two organizations that pour into you and be like, here's what you need to know, here's people that want to help you, that kind of thing, that is really, really valuable. And I wouldn't say that all companies and all industries would be like, hey, you're 25 and trying to take on this big career. Let's help you as much as possible, kind of thing. And yet KW does provide that in a multitude of ways. So glad that our organizations get to work together. Moving along a little bit here, I want to start with you, Jordan. What is something that you can think of that QL has helped you overcome or outgrow?
Ooh, a lot. I feel like it shows up in every facet of my life and in everyday conversations. Um, trying to think of like one good example. I think KW Next Gen and the Quantum Leap experience and material has given me the tools to get to where I am in my career today. It's something I talk about often. I'm the team leader of the KW Bellevue Market Center. Uh, and at 30 years old, people often stop me, and I have agents that are 30, 40, 50, 60 years old that stop me and ask all the time, like, how do you do it? How are you this good at this age? Like, how? And I just smile and laugh, and I'm like, well, I've been drinking from that fire hose from a very long time. I got to start at 20 years old. Furthermore, I got to learn at the feet of some of the very best and brightest minds in the industry. And Quantum Leap was the door, and KW Next Gen was the catalyst that empowered me to do that. So I think that the QL material truly does show up in everything I do. Um, I think we've had some really interesting and exciting accomplishments for the market center I've been leading the last year. Um, and I think a lot of that is in large part to what I've learned through Quantum Leap.
Yeah, I mean, that great answer. And just like, you take the models and the systems, we hear that within KW like every day, models and systems. But really it is this playbook, right? Of just like, I'm going to take these things that have worked for Gary. He put it on paper, worked with some other really smart individuals to put it, to funnel it down to what really worked for multiple people. And then here, if you just do it, you'll succeed, kind of thing. And it's like, there's not really a playbook for life that I have found other than QL. There's different areas of life. There's like a health, playbook, or a money playbook, or whatever. And I just feel like QL is just like, here's how to be an adult. Just follow this and you'll be fine. And you're a great example of like, you took that both in your personal life, but also in your business, and you still implement it today, which is awesome.
Yeah, I think Quantum Leap really is the culmination of here are the steps and the ways of thinking and the ways of living that lead you to a really big life. I'm a firm believer that success leaves clues, and that if you follow in the footsteps of giants, you'll end up where giants end up. So if you want to go live that kind of a life, just go do what those people do. It's really not rocket science. I know a lot of people like to pontificate on social media that there's this secret sauce to being wildly successful in life. It's not. Success is really simple. It's just not easy. That's one thing Johnny taught me years ago, and it's something I have to repeat to myself on a very regular basis, that the biggest ticket to success is falling in love with the monotony of it. Success often is actually really boring. It's doing the same thing over and over and over again until you get the results you want out of it.
I think you just dropped like 8 mics. Boop, boop, boop. So what he said. What about you, Jesse? What's something that you feel like you've overcome through QL?
Like Jordan said, there's a lot of things, but the big thing was I overcame the victim mindset. Like, it's so easy to fall into the victim mindset of this happened to me, that happened to me, this person was mean, that it's so easy to fall into that. And, QL was, it was a mirror that, looking at my face like, no, hey, guess what? You actually have control over your life. You get to determine if you're going to be happy. You're going to get to determine if you're going to be wealthy. You get to determine the direction that you want to go, which is scary because, when you play the victim, you put all that responsibility on the world, but looking in the mirror and say, no, it's actually up to me if I'm going to be happy, if I'm going to, be great. It's scary, but it was liberating. It was like, hey, I don't have to depend on anybody else to have the life I want. And that's what I get from QL. And then the back end of QL was making sure I'm setting myself up financially to be successful. Yes, it's one thing to be mentally strong and physically strong, but are you setting yourself up to be financially successful and strong? Because again, like you just said, we are a non-for-profit organization. So if I do good and the more money I make, that's more money I can give back that I can be able to provide for somebody that I don't personally know, because there's somebody that's dependent on me to show up in a big way to be able to give back to them.
Yeah. I think that that definitely landed home with me, and I'm sure will with many people that are listening. Um, because we all come into this world and don't get to choose our initial path. Some of us were given a lot of things, many people are given very few things. It really depends on how you frame it, exactly like you said, of just like, do you decide to be the victim mentality, or do you decide to say, I'm going to take accountability and ownership for my own life? The first chapter of your life in childhood, you don't get to make all those decisions completely. But once you step into adulthood, you get to decide. And I think that you take what has been given to you and you decide what you're going to do with it. And many people, and it really doesn't matter, somebody that born into money, given all the resources, best schooling and everything, literally can still take victim mentality, find what's wrong with it, and flush it down the toilet kind of thing, or someone can be born into nothing and really struggle or have a lot of things stacked against them, and they can take ownership of their life and they can absolutely fly, kind of thing. And so I think that's a really good point to bring up, of saying like, we get to choose and we get to take that ownership, and that's really inspiring.
It's interesting you say that, Caitlin. I heard this statement a few months ago. When you're born, you look like your parents. When you die, you look like your choices.
Yes, actually, so funny. Our very first episode, Kennedy Young, one of our young adults, had just taken Bold, and she quoted that. And literally, like, I have just like kept that in the back of my head and been like, absolutely. So thank you, Jordan. For anyone that did not listen to our very first episode, I'm sure you all did. But if you haven't yet, you just heard it again from Jordan. That is great advice and a good reminder to all of us every day. Cami, what about you? What have you
I would say getting out of my comfort zone. QL taught me that growth happens outside of the comfort zone. And the comfort zone is such a safe, comfortable place. And, you can live in there, or if you want to have the impact and live out your mission statement, it's time to get out of the comfort zone. And I've done that, one by being a QL instructor and teaching the material, to doing podcasts, to speaking at KW's mega events, to leading a community of young adults. It's really about letting go of that fear and realizing the impact that you can have by raising your hand, speaking up, and showing up.
That's amazing. And just knowing you some, you're a leader who leads with such calmness, at least from my perspective, and more of a quiet leadership rather than a loud one. And yet you absolutely can own a room and you absolutely can take that leadership. And I think it's a good example of like, everyone's comfort zone is slightly different. And then if you find your own way to lead, then, it may make you feel a little uncomfortable, but also you make it your own. Like even what Jesse was saying earlier of like leading with who you are, your authenticity, you don't have to become someone else to lead. You just have to get out of your own way, which is really great. Yeah. So let's stay with you, Cami, actually, on that topic of leadership. As you've moved from being that young adult in the QL Summit room and moved more into your leadership position, how has KW Next Gen or QL influenced that journey?
I would say it's the biggest influence and pretty much the only influence. Everything from taking QL for the first time to becoming an instructor to being on the board to serving the KWYP community. It's just been so ingrained in my world and in my day to day that I just truly feel like I get to live what this material is meant to do and is set out to do. And I really take any opportunity, even like being on the podcast today, to share what it can do when you pay it forward, when you donate, when you join, when you show up, and the impact that that can have not only for yourself, but for the people in your world.
Mm, absolutely. And yeah, it's very cool that you get to be somewhat of like a peer leader also within KWYP and KW Next Gen. May I ask how old you are?
I'm 32.
32. So, as many of you know, our young adult category is 18 to 29. And so, just showing all that Cami has accomplished, and still just a few years past our technical young adult range. And also in the last few years, just as since I've joined the KW Next Gen team, you've gotten married, you've had your first kid, you're living the QL life and living out your dreams and everything outside of business too, which is really beautiful to witness. What about you, Jesse?
For me, it's became a blueprint. Gary Keller always says it right. If you want to get better at something, teach it. So me going down the path of being a teacher, I had to internalize it. I had to start living that because one of the things I fear the most or I really dislike is to be a hypocrite on something. So if I am teaching and sharing to the young adults that this is how you should look at things, I should be looking at those things the same way. I should be a walking, talking billboard for that if that's what I'm believing in and I'm telling other people to do. So for me, it's became a blueprint of not only business, but my personal life where again, I talked about the victim mindset. We all fall into the victim mindset. That's just how we are as humans, but it's how quick we respond and go into the accountability mindset. And that's one of the things QL has helped with limiting the amount of time that I'm in the victim mindset and hurrying up getting into the accountability mindset. And along the lines of what Jordan said earlier, I'm the same way. If I'm going to call you to complain about something, as soon as I'm done complaining, I'm going to say, hey, this is what I'm going to do. And that's from what QL has taught me to like, it's okay to be a victim. Everybody's going to be a victim. Yet it's not okay to stay a victim and, use that as an excuse for anything. So for me, it was, using it as a blueprint to live life and always refer back to that as a handbook whenever different things start happening.
Yeah, I love that. And that idea of like not wanting to be a hypocrite and like using that as a reason to be accountable. I think that that's something that I love to see in people like the three of you that coach and instruct and donate, you're needing to live the stuff too, right? And I think that that is actually funny enough. I like to teach our wealth class because it stretches me. Like, when I'm teaching about the mission statement, I'm teaching about like being your own person. Quite frankly, I was born that way. I like came out just marching to the beat of my own drum. That has not been something that I've struggled with in my life, but I have had to teach myself the financial literacy piece of life and adulthood. I was not necessarily taught that, in school or at home or anything like that. And so to keep myself in check, I often teach that because it feels like I have to be like, okay, if I'm telling these young adults to invest and save and live within their budget and in their means and so on and so forth, like I got to make sure that I am working on my budget and making sure that my investments are in line and everything. And it's actually a really great way to stay accountable. And I've really enjoyed that piece of it. And my wealth and financial health, not to rhyme, but have actually really flourished by doing so. So it's been really great. Yeah. What about you, Jordan? What have you learned to move into leadership?
So Gary Keller's definition of leadership is one I've adopted for myself. I think it is a very articulate way of looking at what leadership truly is. And Gary would tell you that leadership is teaching people the way they need to think in order to do the things they need to do when they need to do it so that they can get what they want when they want it. It's a lot of words to say leadership is teaching people how to think. And I view Quantum Leap and what KW Next Gen brings to the table as the very same thing. If you go back to the foundations of Quantum Leap, the very first thing that anything gets talked about is everything that happens in your life and in your world starts in your mind. and it's teaching people how to think. So I think that that has been the biggest influence in my leadership, is when we hit challenges or hit roadblocks in attaining goals and achieving things as a market center, as an Asian business, myself personally, me and my fiance and our personal goals, where often the easy option is to go to, well, what got in the way? I go back to, well, what was the mindset that prevented us from achieving that? What were we thinking about this that didn't lead us to a successful outcome? And I think when you really go back to the core, everything in your life, like Gary often makes the quip in Quantum Leap, is an afterthought. So if you can fix the thought, you can fix the result.
Yeah. And that is the hardest and easiest thing that we can all do, right? Where it's like sometimes on my optimistic days where I'm like, well, all I have to do is change my mind. Cool. That's within my power. I don't have to force anyone else to do anything. All I have to do is change my mindset. And then there's other times that I'm like, oh my goodness, all I got to do is change my mindset. Or like the realization and the ownership of like, well, if this is happening, what am I thinking? What am I doing to get in my own way? I got to change my mind on this. Like you can't, what Jesse was saying earlier, like you can't like blame someone else. You can't blame the outside world when you're like, oh, it all starts with me. Great. Kind of
It's
thing.
very
And
simple, just not easy.
yes, love that so much. Wonderful. Well, Cami, if someone, I'm sure, actually, this is a great question for you because I'm sure you get this question very often. If someone was interested in being involved with KW Next Gen in any capacity, what would you tell them?
I would tell them to just do it.
Nike.
Quote Nike. I would say, I think you've heard from Jordan and I's stories, don't let finances be the reason that you can't participate. KW Next Gen has scholarship opportunities, and I think you'd be surprised, even just locally, by asking someone on your leadership team or even your real estate team, your mom, dad, aunt, uncle, whoever it might be, to help you get involved with KW Next Gen. Just taking that first quantum leap, that first leap into our community is all that you need to do. I would, of course, recommend, if you get the opportunity, to fly down to Austin to hear from Gary himself. Not that any other instructor isn't as powerful, yet there's just something electric in the room when Gary speaks. So again, just do it. Don't let your limiting beliefs keep you from getting to where you want to go, and lean in on the people in your world to help you get there.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I think that it's important for people to know that we try to remove any barrier to entry to this information and to these resources as much as possible. So, thankfully, to the amazing instructors all around the country that put on Quantum Leaps for free, there are also some that do it virtually where we've been able to have international people attend. And again, those are for free. And then our only paid event is QL Summit because there's more costs associated with that. So we have to cover our costs. But again, hearing Cami and Jordan's story, talk to your leadership, talk to whoever introduced, you to this. Or if you're listening to this as a leader or as a parent or as an aunt or an uncle of a young person, like give them that opportunity. That generosity always comes back to you. And so give them that opportunity to help them cover their expenses so that they can attend that, or make sure that they can attend a free one as well. What about you, Jordan? What would your advice be?
I would echo what Cami said. Get involved. And I firmly believe that you should spend your time in 3 different buckets. Bucket number 1 should be with people who are ahead of you or above you, that are farther down on the journey with you. And so applying that to KW Next Gen, I would say go take a class. Go get involved with an instructor in your local market. Go take it from Gary. Go take it from somebody else who's teaching it. Bucket number 2 is the people at your level. And those are the people in the class with you.
Thank you so much for joining for this episode of the KW Next Gen podcast. We hope that maybe your interest was piqued to attend a class or get more involved. If you're between the ages of 18 and 29, we would love to have you in a Quantum Leap class. So go to our website, kwnextgen.org, and click events. Find maybe an event in person near you or an event online. They're always being added, so check back if you don't see one that fits your schedule. And if you're beyond 30, we would absolutely appreciate you considering being a donor. KW NextGen cannot provide these events, coaching, or scholarships without generous donations like yours. So again, visit our website at kwnextgen.org and click donate. If you become a monthly donor, you get great perks, or a one-time gift is always appreciated of any size. Thanks so much for listening, and we look forward to seeing you next time. This podcast is for general information purposes only. The views, thoughts, and opinions of the guest represent those of the guest and not KW NextGen and its affiliates, and should not be construed as financial, economic, legal, tax, or other advice. This product is provided without any warranty or guarantee of its accuracy, completeness, timeliness, or results from using the information.